A modern firm is more likely to attract the best talent because they use modern technology. Digital generation grew up working in connected cloud work apps. They were working in teams of students in high school, in college. They're showing up to the workforce, understanding how to work in the connected world of work remotely. I watched somebody speak into a chat GPT prompt, ask them to create an engagement letter for a client, and gave verbal details of the client. And the AI chat GPT gave him a perfect engagement letter that he was able to send.
Technology, it's all over. It's everywhere. Does it play a part in the talent game? Here on the Accounting Talent Podcast, we have an expert, Jeff Phillips, that may have some of the answers, and I can maybe provide a little bit more. Jeff Phillips, how does technology affect the way we recruit? Is it a factor at all?
It's a factor. A modern firm is more likely to attract the best talent because they use modern technology.
Yeah, we did the Accounting Answers podcast. It's still going, actually. It's a daily show. We asked 110 people. You were one of them, Jeff, I believe. We asked them the same 5 questions. Question number 1 was, will the next generation of accountants be any different from their predecessors? And it was pretty categorical that they would be. When you start asking, how are they going to be different? Well, they've grown up with tech. They've grown up with a cell phone in their hand, a lot of them. They have grown up very tech savvy, and they demand the very best tech, the very best software, the very best apps. You may have even seen that experiment, Jeff, where they put an old style phone. Do you remember the one where you put your finger in and you went round on a dial?
Rotary.
And they put a phone in a room with 2 15-year-old boys, and they said, you have 2 minutes to make a phone call. No. They couldn't do it. They didn't know they had to pick up the handset. They didn't know they had to put their finger in and dial. So you're right. These days, people of all generations, really, let's not categorize here. We all need tech to work. How frustrated do you get when the Wi-Fi doesn't work, or when you can't download something, or the tech just doesn't work?
It's frustrating, but it would be more frustrating that I had to work at a place with a rotary phone than an iPhone.
Yeah. Or do you remember the filofaxes? You couldn't have a CMS or a CRM on your phone. You had to have business cards and Rolodexes. Remember those days?
Rob, I still remember my best friend's phone numbers from when I was a kid, but I do not know my son's phone number, who I call probably once a day. Isn't it interesting?
Some people don't know their own phone numbers. So there's that. But we're talking here about whether, and we've agreed that it does, technology affects how accounting firms recruit and their capability, their ability to hire not just anybody, but the best people. So I suppose, Jeff, if we're being provocative, I'd say to you, well, we would say that to our listeners. Is your firm's technology driving away candidates? Do we have evidence, Jeff, that your work in the recruitment space, evidence that candidates care about technology and it factors into their thinking about whether they'll go somewhere or not?
Absolutely. Feedback we get from candidates at Accounting Fly is, I don't want to work at this firm. It's too old school. And too traditional. We're not embracing modern technology. Rob, I have a theory that accountants are technologists at heart, that accountants like to geek out on technology, but it's also very overwhelming. I was at a conference a year ago and there were 130 software vendors just serving the CPA profession. And so if I own a firm, I walk into that room and even if accountants are technologists, I look at that and go, this is overwhelming. And I think there's a tendency to bury our head in the sand and stick with what works. But the technology you use affects a lot of things. It affects your enterprise value. That affects meaning, what is your exit value when you sell the firm? If you're going to sell the firm in 10 years, we got to position it to be attractive to a buyer. And the same thing is true for attracting talent. If you want predictable and repeatable hiring, one of the places you need to be is having a modern practice, because we're not looking for rotary phones anymore. We're looking for iPhones, to use the analogy.
This plays also, Jeff, into the work debate. Absolutely. We mentioned it a little bit on our last episode where we're looking at fractional hiring and the role of the freelancer. And you very eloquently went through the 3 different kinds of freelance work that firms can bring in for different reasons. But when you work from home, I've got 3 screens here. I've got the bathroom right there. I've got the fridge full of things that I like. I've got my phone right here. I've got my laptop if I need it. I've got all the tech that I need. I've got really good Wi-Fi. I've got everything. I've even got my own wardrobe, jackets hanging up there if I need them. I've got my own things to wear. But you bring me into the office, I'm hot desking now with one desk, one screen, one computer. I've got to get all the logins right. I've got to find everything that I need. It's not as comfortable. The apps that I want, I can't maybe get on a work computer. That's a lot going on, isn't it?
Yes. And it's really all tied together. In running a modern practice is the preferred way. And you're speaking to being able to hire remote work. And it takes modern technology and embracing of remote work technology to allow for our new talent stack to take place. We can't hire offshore. We can't hire freelance. We can't hire remote domestic leaders if we are operating on desktop software, if we're not using cloud accounting software, if we're not using remote work and project management tools. These are the underpinnings of what a modern firm looks like.
So as always, Jeff, we're going to define the problem that we're trying to solve here.
It's hard to hire people, right? We're losing good people. Turnover is high. And my message is that there are pro moves that leaders can make very short term that unlock opportunities to hire talent. The talent is out there. Our staffing agency, Accounting Fly, only works with remote positions in the US for CPA firms and accounting teams, and we get 1,000 applications a week for remote jobs. So to me, when you unlock remote, there is no talent crisis. There is change management that happens. And we talk about a lot, Rob, the talent stack. Well, the talent stack is embracing remote work. It's embracing freelancers. It's embracing offshore, but it's also embracing technology that automates a lot of the repeatable tasks so that you don't have to hire at certain like data entry levels and admin levels, for example. And so a firm that is wired up that way is far more attractive. You're not going to get a candidate to walk in and say, oh, this is old school. They're just still doing pickup. They haven't embraced bank feeds. They aren't meeting remotely. So it's all tied together in the talent stack, but it's just, I want to take a look at the technology stack and how a firm approaches technology as a recruitment tool and as a way to just build a better company.
I want to ask you what we mean by a technology stack, because we have a tech stack in the accounting vocabulary, but people have their own interpretations. But just before we do that, I'd love to get your comments on accountants these days, part geek, part nerd. That's by necessity. It's also by desire. And what I mean by that is when you look at I've got a slide that I use in my presentations about the 5 modern skills that accountants need to be relevant and competitive in today's world. I'm going to mention the first 2. The first is technical expertise. You've got to know your shit. You've got to know the tax law, the state law, everything else. You've got to know your regulatory mandates. You've got to know about debits and credits. You need to know what you're talking about. And all accountants have that. It gets them in the game, staying up with the CPE, CPD. They're good at that. But the second thing they need is technological skills. So let me define that as I see it. It's more than turning a computer on and off. It's probably not writing code and Python and everything else, but it's somewhere in between, because they're in decent science firms. They're dealing with hundreds of apps, hundreds of software products, hundreds of different platforms. They need to navigate their way around that with some dexterity. And accountants these days need to be making recommendations to businesses about which tech they should be using. So as a trusted advisor, an accountant should be adept, comfortable, good at dealing with tech, more than good. That doesn't mean turning them into super nerds, but being, I guess, comfortable around the tech. So just unpack that a little bit from your point of view.
I think the same is true for all small business owners and people in corporate leadership positions as well. Clients, Rob, have you heard of your friends, clients that own accounting firms where their clients are asking them questions about fintech apps that they could be using to produce better accounting information, or other like generic IT questions? We get questions like that all the time. What technology should I be using, Mr. Accountant, to run my small business better? And so I do think fluency around technology makes for a better accounting practice if you're serving corporate clients, especially.
Another dimension to that, Jeff, is the nature of tech. For instance, one big firm I used to do business development training for was in a very agricultural location. A lot of their clients were farmers. Now, there's a whole slew of farming tech that relates very specifically to agriculture and the way farms work. If you're in property and you're a landlord or you've got a property portfolio, you're collecting monthly rent, there's a whole stack of technology there beyond spreadsheets that serves that well. So if you've got a very broad client base, you've got to know a lot of different tech stacks for a lot of different industries, hence the power of niching, or niching as you guys call it.
As you were saying that and giving those examples of industries, I was thinking about software providers to those specific industries. There's a project management software built just for real estate property owners that goes to accounting conferences because they want accountants to be aware that their clients and the accountants themselves could run better client service, just knowing that like that's out there.
So when we're asking the question, does technology affect the way you recruit, how you recruit? The answer is yes. But not just having the technology. If I come to your firm, I'm going to want to know that you're going to teach me on the technology. There's some education element there. I want to know I'm going to have access to good technology. I want to know that I'm going to broaden my horizons. I'm going to be given the kind of training that brings me up to speed with all the technology. And if that's not on the menu, I'm not dining at your firm, am I?
Right. And there's ways to outsource that. You don't have to read the encyclopedia of technology to become the expert, but you have to address it. And sometimes I feel like we're talking about things that should be obvious, but maybe they're not. But I know this based off feedback we get from candidates on a weekly basis. The race for talent is over. The talent is won, right? We're in a candidates market. And so we're going to appeal to the candidates to win them over and build a predictable and repeatable hiring machine that you can sell one day. And addressing technology as a way to recruit people is on your small list of to-do items to level up the firm.
Okay, so what is an accounting firm's technology stack? Give us the Jeff Phillips definition here.
Technology stack is the vetted list of software that we use to run our business and serve our clients as efficiently as possible. And you usually start with the practice management piece. You're going to have tax software. You're going to have accounting software. There are ancillary apps that could serve clients depending on the services that you use. These are all fueled a lot easier and connected if you're in a cloud environment. And then there's the world of work technology that I think is extraordinarily attractive to talent because it unlocks hybrid work environments. It increases productivity. It allows for collaboration online. So it opens you up to the vast pool of remote talent, whether it's full-time, freelance, or offshore, that you are not accessing if you cannot log in over the web in the cloud.
That is such a good point. When we look at Teams and Zoom and things like that, Slack, these are not accounting technology apps, are they? They're general life apps that allow you to work remotely. And without those, a firm can't run a hybrid model.
My daughter is in middle school, and she was telling me the other night that she uses Google Docs and Google Slides for her school. And she was going back through every project she's done since the second grade. She's now in middle school because it's all on her same Google account. The digital generation grew up working in connected cloud work apps. They were working in teams of students in high school, in college. They're showing up to the workforce, understanding how to work in the connected world of work remotely. That's the language they speak of how they do projects. Unfortunately, they're even reading their books on computers, which I prefer to touch paper, but that's how they're showing up, right? So if we want them to work for us, to be productive for us, and we're asking them to work in a way that worked for us 30 years ago, there's a massive disconnect. So you're closing the door on talent just by not having this baseline of what I just call world of work apps. Like forget accounting software and tax software, which are critical, but how we collaborate and make decisions and deliver value and communicate is modern. And this whole generation of employees are showing up and want to work that way.
So when we look at the impact that technology has on attracting talent? Can it hurt? Can it help? Where do we stand on that?
It's either headwinds or tailwinds. I mean, it is the analogy I kind of landed on a second ago. It's a door that you have closed talent or that you can open with talent. And the learning curve here is small. It is really a matter of trying new things and getting into the game with some basic apps that people use.
It lends itself to a collaborative approach where you don't want accounting firms ran by old white guys, for instance, that grew up with the kind of tech that was fine for them. But you want to be leaning into your younger staff and saying, hey, what do you use for this? And how could we do this? And they should have a good say on things, shouldn't they?
That's where I would start. If you have staff that are younger, is ask them, remember how we talked about in another episode, the power of surveying your employees to try to move the ball forward on how you run your firm better and how you have higher employee engagement. This is a question you want to ask your staff. And I have some places to start, but the best place to start is to ask your team. What happens is you get overwhelmed by all the recommendations. I mean, I run a franchise of accounting firms, and everybody has a different opinion about the technology we should use. So it's very hard to make decisions for 300 accounting firms, especially when everybody has an opinion, because guess what? They're all technologists. But you know, what we do is we take the time to vet products and trial them and push them out and learn and try to document that. So we have a lot of institutional knowledge of just trying to find the best apps that are good for modern practices.
So where do we start?
You start with, I think there are two buckets. One is accounting specific and one is work specific. And I would start with work specific technology. So what I'm talking about there, Rob, is how can we open up our firm to hybrid work? And that is collaboration tools.
So that's project management stuff, you guess?
Starting with project management. And because that opens up the world of remote work. And I know this is something we're diving deep into another podcast, like how do I manage a hybrid team? And but you want to have a solid project management software. You want to commit to it. You want to have a collaboration suite. So this is like the Google products where you have Gmail plus Google Docs and Sheets, and you have a chat through that function. You can set up video calls with that function.
That's communication technology, isn't it?
That's communication falls under the world of work tools. But you mentioned Zoom. You need a video chat platform. You need a written chat platform. So video examples is Teams, is Zoom, is Google. You want to be able to collaborate on documents. Teams allows for Word and Excel document collaboration. So it opens up the world of asynchronous communication. So Rob, I can complete a piece of work on my time, hand it over to you, and you complete the next step in the work and add comments, and it goes to person 3. And it goes back to the person who might be finishing the work. And they don't have to meet or sit in a room to complete the work. They can jump on a video chat if necessary. They can complete their work through written chat, through Slack or through Teams or through Gmail chat. And so what's exciting about it is it allows for work to be completed at a great pace, but not at the exact same time, which is why we call it asynchronous communication.
Yeah, so I can picture a scenario where people might leave an accounting firm because of the tech, more specifically because the tech doesn't talk to each other. It's frustrating. You've got legacy pieces of software, that your tax, your accounting software, they don't all join together. And maybe whoever's buying that piece for that and that piece for that, different people, different decision makers, they're not talking to each other. The APIs are not right. And all of these technical terms and platforms, people must be pulling their hair out sometimes trying to get simple jobs done and join up the dots. And they would leave on that basis, yes?
Yes. With great frustration if you don't have it sorted out. For sure. Or if you're stuck in if you have a desktop product like QBO Desktop, you're very limited in your options because there must be a desk. A human has to sit at a desk and has to be on a computer that is attached physically to a server that has that software running on it.
So we can't get by without the cloud now. Firms should be digital. We know that some are not, but the cloud joins everything up and makes everything work. We presume that firms are in the cloud. If not, what we're seeing, Jeff, is they're going to be at a disadvantage in the talent arena.
And even if you have desktop software, there are tools available that allow you to put your desktop software on a network that can create distributed or remote work. Yeah. There are major vendors in our space that will take your QB desktop or take your Thomson Reuters desktop software and allow for someone to collaborate with you online. So you can plug in pretty easily that way on your legacy accounting software. Although I recommend making a full move to the cloud where appropriate. So now we're talking about the world of accounting software. So what's happening in the accounting software is it's the same thing. If I'm outdated in my technology, if I'm using an old version of desktop, for example, that's a drawback for talent. If I'm using cloud applications, that is a plus. I did a webinar with a cloud accounting platform 3 years ago where we dove very deeply into studies around what drivers were attracting talent into firms. Now, the non-negotiables are compensation and flexibility, but the number 3 was what technology a firm uses is a major signal to attract or repel talent.
I can't believe we got this far into the episode without mentioning AI, artificial intelligence, because it is part of the technology conversation. Accountants these days, we know there's downward pressure on compliance fees. The historical backward-looking stuff is less valued by clients. So we're turning accountants into advisors, and we talk about CAS, don't we, and advisory. So mention a little bit about how that plays into the tech conversation, Jeff.
What I have learned being involved in recruiting and running a firm is that to get into CAS, you pretty much need to be using some sort of cloud accounting software, because the apps that provide value to the clients that help you deliver advisory products, cash flow budgeting, forecasting, things like this.
Reporting, analytics, but more to my AI point, interpreting that data and drawing conclusions from it and helping the business owner, the client, make good commercial decisions off the back of that. You need tech, maybe a bit of AI. You need a lot of things for that.
I learned recently that some of the top MBA schools here in the United States are offering MBAs focused on AI. We're coming out of college and master's programs now far more articulate around what AI is and the potential of it than those of us who have been in the world of work for 20 or 30 years or more. And so, yes, have an opinion on AI, play around with it, hand this to your staff that's under 30 years old and say, how can we make use of this? I watched somebody speak into a chat GPT prompt, ask them to create an engagement letter for a client and gave verbal details of the client. And the AI chat GPT gave him a perfect engagement letter that he was able to send. They would have normally spent 2 hours on this, and ChatGPT knocked it out in a couple of minutes at most. And so why wouldn't you want to get excited about that? And be the type of employer that embraces new technology instead of being afraid of it? What a signal to people who might be looking at you as an employer.
I did an interview recently with 2 very high up guys in Microsoft. They've got a platform called Azure OpenAI, and it's not an off-the-shelf thing like ChatGPT, which might serve some accountants at some levels. But this is being used by the big enterprise companies, the big tech companies and businesses, and it just does a whole lot more. And the point is that it's secret, it's kept in-house, it doesn't release data out there on an open platform. And if you went into an accounting firm and they said, we've got this platform and everyone on our team has access to the AI tools, and it's generative, however they call it, that's really attractive to a young person. And it's attractive to anybody, I guess. So that's it. You're saying we've got this.
Just to say that we're investigating it, and that part of our culture is that we leave no stone unturned when the new technology comes out. Imagine sitting on the internet in 1999 or 2000. I got out of college in 1998, Rob. I wanted to work in the web. That I was so excited about. That's what I did. And I went to work for a software company that was building web-based software. It's attractive. It's exciting. It shows that we are forward thinking and that we are progressive. We are future oriented, not stuck in the past. Is it intimidating? Yes. 130 vendors at a major accounting conference. It's overwhelming. But start somewhere. But and be willing to spend part of your time, part of your budget, part of your energy in embracing new technologies and putting it into like a little bit of an R&D cycle and say, how could this benefit our firm and our clients? And how exciting would it be to be a young person to work inside a firm and have given that responsibility to investigate it? That's the kind of firm I would like to work in.
Don't be a laggard. Don't be a late adopter, please. So let's sum up, Jeff. What's the problem we're trying to solve here, and what's the answer?
Modern firms attract talent. And to be a modern firm, you've got to embrace modern technology. And we're past the stage of early adopter, even on AI, but especially around cloud accounting. We're in the middle of that bell curve. So if you're not there, embrace that change, because that will attract talent for sure.
Jeff Phillips, thank you so much for your passion and your insights. We've been the Accounting Talent Podcast. Tune into all of these episodes to give you an edge in the talent market for your accounting firm. We'll see you next time.